Can we first start a little bit on the story of development of the Order of the Sinking Star? Meaning,
Sure.
it famously took a decade, or it's taking a decade.
Not quite yet. By the time it comes out, it will have been 10 years, which is absurd. And it was supposed to be a short. So there was a game that I really wanted to do that some people have played, and it's really fun. And I was like, I kind of don't want to go into a big, complicated development after The Witness, because The Witness took 6.5 years and was very tiring. And so I was like, we'll just do this short game, and then I'll go back and do this other game that's going to be. And then the short game turned into a giant situation for 10 years.
But the long game was the musical game?
No, it is not something that I have spoken about publicly.
Okay.
It's kind of just a secret.
It's like a super secret, because
it won't be a long game though. Actually, I did speak about this game tangentially. There was a conference called Practice, a game design conference in 2014, and I talked there about like a game that I would spread out over like 20 years, which seemed like a long time at that time. Just in installments, right? And this is that game. And so the plan for it is still to do it in smaller chunks, kind of like if you have a series of fantasy novels that eventually becomes really big, like the Song of Ice and Fire stuff that maybe someday will get finished.
Someday.
Yeah. You can build quite a big, sophisticated thing in pieces, right? And so that was the plan for that, and definitely has to be the plan for that now, because I'm never doing a 10-year game again. It's impossible.
But whether the plan was in the beginning to have these now 4 islands like as actual separate games that would be released independently, or was this?
No. It was always to put them together. It's just that, like, when you want to believe things, you'll find reasons to believe them. So it's like, oh, we're basing this on existing material from other designers, right? So those 4 games they're revised versions of the games, but both graphically, much more sophisticated, and also just design revised. But they're games that existed already. And so I was like, oh, that gives us, maybe that's like 20% of the design work done. And like, no, it's like, it rounds to 0, the amount because we built so much game on the back end of that, and revised those and expanded them and all that part didn't help. And then in the meantime, this is a game that's fundamentally about a combinatoric explosion, which programmers know generates very big numbers very fast. And like, for some reason, when I was thinking about the game, I just didn't take it that seriously. I was like, yeah, it's about combining these worlds together, and that'll generate emergent gameplay mechanics, and that'll be really cool. And like, yeah, maybe there's a little bit of like a scaling issue, but we'll just deal with it. We just won't let it get that big, right? But then I just let it get that big. So, yeah, it's a problem. Like, it's maybe not a problem. We'll see if it's a problem. Like, so the question sort of is, do people play it, right? I mean, maybe that doesn't even matter. I mean, I saw some clip. Well, let's not go too far off topic, but, there's more reasons to do things than just like, does it find a big audience, right? Do you find personal satisfaction from it? Did it allow you to grow in skill and in your refinement of your person and in your understanding of the world? And all those things are true. And so, this was mostly probably worth doing, even if nobody plays it. But you would also like a lot of people to play. If you put 10 years into something, it's like, yeah, you want people to just so for financial reasons, you want to keep doing what you're doing, but also just like the reason you put so much effort into something like this is because you see what's interesting and beautiful about it. And you just want to you want other people to be able to see that. And so, yes, And that's also kind of how it became a big, long project, is just, you see what you've got at any moment in time, and like, here's what we would like to do to make it better. And like, okay, we could do this good thing and make it really good. We could do this thing and make it like not that good, but take less time. And a lot of the time people choose the less time, and maybe I should choose the less time option more often, but I didn't really. But what that does, though, is it puts you in the realm. So the reason people make those decisions is to defray some cost, right? Like maybe it's directly the cost of paying people to work on the game. Maybe it's just the cost of like how much time in my life am I spending working on something. But so if you're willing to pay that cost, you can end up in territory where other people just didn't get to. And then you automatically have something that's different from what everybody else has. But because you're paying the cost, it is a little bit painful to get there, right? And so that's how it went.
Did it always had the same size of the team working on it, and like the same number of programmers and like artists? Like how did it fluctuate?
It has varied. What I will say is, because I thought it was a shorter game, shorter development wise, then we sort of kept a full, well, not even just, so Witness development was pretty long. After that was finished, sometimes it's just natural for people to move on to other projects, right? So one guy from our art team, Luis Antonio, went off to do his own game called 12 Minutes, which, you know, was released and was a successful game. And so, you know, there's some attrition that's just natural. But like because I thought, oh, we're trying to do this game in 2 or 3 years, I hired up to like fill that out and like keep a full size team for that time. Which I don't exactly remember how many people it was. So the Witness, we had 8 full-time people toward the end, and then a lot of contractors helping out temporarily. These days, the company is like 10 people full-time, and then again, quite a few contractors. And so it has grown, like, let's say slowly over the past 10 years. But if I were to do it over, I probably would have let the company be as small as it was and just like built out the game myself and the programming language and all this stuff to the greatest extent possible. Like I hired some people to help with that. Eventually we found people who were good, but I don't know. Sometimes things just don't work out the way that you wish they did and all that stuff. So, yeah, but it's a very different. So when I started The Witness, it was like I had done Braid as a solo programmer with a little bit. Actually, Sean Barrett helped on Braid a little bit. I don't know if you talked about that in that interview.
No, he didn't mention.
Yeah, toward the very end, I was like really burned out because 3.5 years seemed like a really long project, and I was like, we're shipping on Xbox Live in like 2 months. I wish there were some better visual effects. Hey, Sean, do you want to come do some shader effects? So he did some of the graphical stuff in the game, and that was really helpful. But yeah, so, okay, I forget why I brought that up. But, because it was basically me with, you know, some people who helped out on the side, but were not like part of the company, right? And then, so when I went to do The Witness, it was a process of slowly building up the team over time. But the good thing about that is it's cheap in the beginning because the team is not big. But then after The Witness finished, it was like more expensive in the beginning, right? And it's maybe not as useful to have a big team in the beginning because, you know, having more people helps if you know that you want to execute on a certain idea, right? And it's like, okay, we need this person to do this and this person to do that and all that. But if you're doing something original and you don't exactly know what it is yet, you know, which is a problem you don't have. For example, if you're making a sequel to a thing that already exists or whatever, then you know what it is and you don't have as much of a period in the beginning of being unsure, right? But for a game like this, where like there's so many things about the game that only got figured out after years of thinking about them, right? Because the depth of things to figure out was like really, really deep. In terms of the number of dependencies, yeah, it just, I think people are less efficient because it's like, well, the art team is hanging around and they're sort of doing art for the game, but they also kind of don't totally know what the game, like, are we going to have an overworld? What's it going to be like? Like, how big are the levels going to be? Like, what technical features are we going to have for making the levels look good? We don't know exactly. We're sort of making some, and that just, it just means that you can't like deploy people in an in an efficient manner in the same way. Nowadays, now that the game is getting close to done, one of the problems we have is like, oh, there's all these levels because the game's really big. So we have 5 environment artists right now, just like doing art for the levels. But that is a relatively efficient process now because we know what the game looks like. We figured out all the technical implementation. We figured out the visual style choices that you need to make levels look good, which usually is a several phase thing. You know, so for example, in The Witness, we spent this time and we're like, how do buildings look and how do walls look and how does the ground look and all this? And then we eventually got the technical features in, we experimented with them, we figured out the style. And then we started doing we thought we had it all done and we started doing trees and grass and we're like, those same techniques for solid surfaces just doesn't make sense on trees and grass. So like, what do we do? And then that was a second phase of experimentation, figuring that out. And that's true really for any game that's visually original. They will have gone through that kind of process.